Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is part 21D of our cooking series, Let's Get Cooking, where we are dealing with cooking and kitchen mechanics in a game. Last time I left you a little bit of homework, if you like, to complete the rest of your data assets for your bulk items and also make your various blueprints for your items. Now, if you've already made your blueprints and what I'm about to tell you is going to cause you to delete some, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. We only need blueprints for our bulk items that are going to be used differently than an ingredient, i.e. a bag of coffee where we can pour the coffee into the coffee machine, which is what we'll be doing later, or taking a slice of bread out of a pack of bread or a burger bun out of a pack of burger buns, whatever, then we need to make that separate blueprint because they handle that. They will then spawn the correct ingredient for us to use in our recipes. If, however, like the jam and the butter, we've already got a lot of data set up there, we don't need to make a bulk item because we can use them as they are. We can take a jar of jam off the shelf and we can use that jam in our recipes. We can take a pat of butter out of our fridge. So you only need to add the ones that have extra things going on. So to give you an idea, the bread, I haven't put an active class in here yet, so I'm going to use that as my loaf of bread, which I'm sure I made there, the loaf of bread, which is the one I made in our bulk items here. So let's go ahead and save that. In my coffee, also use the one I made here. In my strawberry jam, I use the data asset for strawberry jam and I use the blueprint for our jam. Now, you've probably just got BP jam, and I'm going to explain that in just a moment, how I went ahead and changed it. And same with blueberry jam, I've got DAB jam and BP blueberry jam. And the butter, I'm using the BP butter that we already have and the DA butter that we already have. Okay, for the ingredient. So what we're basically going to be using these data assets for the ones that have their own that are already an ingredient, like our butter and our jam. This is just going to be used to display information in the shop app that we're going to make. So quick explanation about the jam. We've got a game item, so just say that we're adding it. Normally we'd only have one. Go to our ingredients. You would probably have one called jam, BP jam. So what I've done is I renamed that to BP strawberry jam, duplicated it to BP jam. The same with the data assets. You would have had a data asset called jam. You would have a data asset called jam, and I've just renamed it S jam or strawberry jam if you wanted to, and B jam for blueberry jam. Duplicated it. Now, the difference is, I also then went into my meshes, find my meshes, and ingredients, jam. You have one of like empty jam jar with label or something like that. I made one called jar of strawberry jam, one called jar of blueberry jam, and the difference being is, in the data asset, we're changing the label. The rest of it is just the same. The contents color we do also inside the blueprint. So that's how we've got those. And then in the data assets for them, go back to those. In the data assets for these items, so I'll open up strawberry jam. You see we're using the SM strawberry jam. I'm using strawberry jam label for that, for the item icon, because I don't have anything different. and the BP strawberry jam that I showed you we made. Okay. And what else did I do? Ingredient type is still jam, although that will change later on, not in this series. And the same with the blueberry jam, I basically made the same. Everything else just changes it to the labels, blueberry jam label, the icon, and the blueberry jar. Now if we go into our blueberry jar, data asset, all I've done is change the label ingredient to have the different color label, okay, in our static mesh, which I showed you how to do earlier on, and whatever you decide you want to do. And in the blueprint itself, let me show you the blueprint itself. Game item ingredients. So let's take the blueberry jam. With our viewport, the data asset and color will be set correct. All I've done is I've changed the lid color to a color that's more fitting to what the contents of the jam is. Now change the contents to an instance of our blueberry jam. Still use the same static mesh, we're just changing the material. We've now got a purple instead of a red. Okay, and they're just instances of our jam. Okay, well, spreadable basically. So they're just instances of that. So that's how we've got our different ones. So don't panic if we don't have them. They're quite easy to make up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close down a lot of these windows that I've got open, or these tabs I've got open, just to keep things a little bit simpler for us. We've set up all our data assets. Now we need to set up our blueprints. So we can get rid of the shelf. Get rid of all our BPIs for now. If we need more, we can open them again. It's not a big problem. And I'm going to say go ahead and close them all. Let's close them. Okay. Let's close all of these. So we're starting off with a blank canvas. Let's first of all just set up our two new blueprints. Now bulk items, they're very simple. We're going to open the loaf of bread, make sure we set our data asset to the loaf of bread. Which I've got there, so it gives us our correct data asset. Just compile, close that for now. We're not going to worry about that too much today. And the same with our coffee, you can just go data asset here. I can pack coffee, there you go. And if you want to just check, you can open up the full one and look in your viewport, make sure your mesh is there and everything's correct. Okay, we're not going to worry too much more about these today, or not right now anyway. So the next one we're going to do is the big one, the main one. So we are going to go to our blueprint, current blueprint, and we're going to be working on our BP storage, BPP storage. And I'm going to open up mine in here. Right. So now in the viewport, we're not doing anything. So we're going to go straight to our event graph. And you can see in our event graph, nothing much is called. Okay. Not yet. Okay. So we're going to start working on that now. But I think we need to do the functions first. Okay. Okay, so let's start on these first. There's quite a lot of them, so bear with me. This video could be a longer one. So the first one we're going to call is get socket transform. We're going to make them and then we're going to go ahead and put them all in, just so I know we've got them all. Next one is going to be called stock item. Next one is going to be called set position full. Next one is set max items. Next one is give max items. And I'm going to double check I'm not making a mistake there. Don't believe I am. No, okay, just making sure that it didn't come from an interface. Next one is get is position full. Why didn't that type? Get is position full. Then find free socket. Then last one is can add item. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do these one by one. So get socket transform is quite easy. So let's start with that one. And then it has an input of socket name, which is of type name. Okay. We drag in our base mesh. That's where we've got all our sockets, remember. And we use get socket transform. It's already and the only reason I put it in this little function is as a helper function. Okay. It's a pure function. And we're simply going to, if we're going to keep this in RTS world, it seems to work fine like that. We're just going to return that value. It's just a helper function that we'll be using later on. Okay. The stock item I'm going to leave for a moment because we need other ones first. So we're going to do set position full. Excuse me. And this has some inputs. It has socket name. It has item name. Socket name is of type name. Item name is of our E underscore bulk items names. And I'm just going to move it above there. And the last one, last input is full question mark, and that's a boolean. because we're going to use it to do different things. Okay, so we're going to need a variable. I thought we did these variables, but maybe we didn't. Thought we done these variables before. Where have we got money? No, of course we didn't. I'm thinking we did them in our base. So we're going to add some variables as we go along. The easiest way to deal with that right now. So the first variable we need is one called storage data. Let's add a variable and call it storage data. And this is of type E underscore bulk names. It's a map of our S underscore socket struct. Okay. I think that's the only variable we need for completing this one. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to grab this. We're going to say find. So we're going to look for the bulk item name. There's a little bit of space. We're going to promote that to a local variable. Call it L item data, or whatever you prefer. Okay, I'm trying to get a little bit bigger, but I find if it goes too big, it gets a bit fuzzy on the recording. We're going to break this struct. Find break struct, which is going to give us this, and straight away we're going to promote this to a local variable. We're going to call this L sockets. Join that one up. I'll zoom out and give you an overview in a moment. Then we're going to drag out of here, and we're going to say add using the map add function. And we're going to drag off here and get the socket name, which is in this case got an F because it comes from here, and is full. Again, comes from here. So we've added it into a local variable. The reason we do that is because you can't change it. Sometimes data within inside data. So you have to actually make it separate before you can set it in a local environment before you can set it in the actual one. So we're going to grab our local data and we're going to set members. Make sure we've got our socket, and we're going to drag in our local socket. So we're setting it in our local environment here via whatever's up there. Then we're resetting it into our local data here, and then we're going to now set it into our global data. I have tried it other ways. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, whereas this I find works more reliably. So this is why I do it this way. If you get another way or another better way of doing it, then obviously let other people know if you can, and also let me know. So we're going to join the socket out there. We need a name. Well, we got that from the beginning of the function, so we can say item name. It comes from the beginning of the function. That's all we have for that function. It is not a pure function because we're setting variables. Okay. You can set local variables inside a pure function, but you can't set, or you shouldn't set global variables. It does work, but you shouldn't do it. Basically because everything gets run every time this is run if it's a pure function as opposed to in the line of execution. So if you've got this in several places, it gets run several times and could cause data corruption. Okay, so the next one we can do, get max items. This is the max amount of items that we can hold. So we're going to get our storage data. We're going to do a for each map through that, like so. We're going to break our socket because we want our socket information. We're going to get the lengths of this, because all we care about is how much that shelf can hold, is our max value. Yeah. And we need to make a new variable. So we're going to add a new variable and we're going to call this max items. And it is of type bulk names, but instead of socket, it is integer. Okay. We're going to drag him in, or her in, or it in. We're going to say add. We're going to add the map key, and we're going to add this quantity. Again, nice simple one. It's not a pure one because we're setting variables. Give max items is basically very simple. We're just going to add an output. Oh, we'll call it max items. Okay, in fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete that. Easy way of doing it. Through the shortcut. I'm going to drag in this because that's what we want to give. Drag it to there and join it up there. Nice and simple. Make it a bit easier for ourselves than to make it up here. Get position full is a little bit more complex. Okay, so in here we're going to need some inputs, and it's going to be first one is going to be called item name, and that's going to be of our underscore bulk items. You'll see we're going to use a lot of repetition here. And the other input is socket name. This is why I've been continuously saying that the socket name is important. This is a pure function. Make sure we check pure. We're going to get our storage data. We're going to find the socket. Sorry, we're going to find the item. We're going to break it. Then we're going to find the socket name from the variable from here. Okay. Because we're not setting anything, we can still look for the data. Okay. And we're simply going to return that. Okay. Be careful, the bottom one just tells us whether the item is found. So be careful when you've got two booleans in a map, that if we want which one that you want. In this case, we want the top one. Okay. Because this one would always say true, even because it'll find the socket. Because we've set the socket, so it will find the socket, but it will give us the wrong answer. This will either be true or false. This will either be only false if we don't find it. Okay, next one is find free socket. That has one input. not pure, that has one input, and this is called item name. And it's of type E underscore bulk items. And again, drag in here, do a find. So here, break this very much like we did before. Okay. And then we're going to for each through this. And we're going to drop this down so that we expose our break executable. We're going to need that. Let's have local variables. Yes, it does. Set them as we go along. So first thing we do is when we come out of here, we're going to get our map value and we say, is this equal, double equals, to false, because we're looking for an empty slot. So we want this to be false. Branch. If it's true, I know it sounds confusing, hang on, this is false here, but we're saying this is true because we're looking for false. So therefore, it will be true if it's false, it will be false if it's this output is true. If it's true, we're going to reroute this, promote it to a local variable. I'm just going to call it L key because it's what it is. Local key. And true. So we're going to add another local variable. I'm going to call it L found. And that's going to be of type Boolean. Make sure it's a single and a bool. And in this case, because that's true, we can set that to true. And then we can go ahead and around here and break the execution of this loop because we found what we're looking for. If we didn't find it, we'll go on to the next one until it gets to the end. Well, you have to be very careful with the next part that you should always check. So we need, at the end of here, we get our local found on the completed. We do a branch. If it's found, we drag in our get socket transform. We use our local key, which is what we set here. Okay, and we can output that. Keep it as return value is fine. And we're going to put another output. Three socket found. Question mark. And that's a bool. And because we found it, we're going to say yes. You could connect this local found up to it, it's fine. If it's not found, we return this with a no and a null pointer for that. But you might have a problem having a null pointer of a transform. So just right click it, split the pin, and that will solve any problems. Okay. And that handles that. Okay. So the other one that I said that I think we're ready for now is the most complex one. That does all the work, is our stock item. Now this has two inputs. And I'm just going to do this one first, even though it's not the first one, and say is from save. Now this will make sense later on when we start doing save game stuff, but for now let's keep it here because it saves us having to rewrite the whole thing later and forgetting. And this one is going to be called item index. Okay. And this one is going to be of an integer. Now I'm going to go fairly slow through this one because this is a little bit complex. So we're going to promote this straight away to a local variable. Okay, local variable. And let me just check. Yes, to a local variable. We can call this L current item index. Okay. We can just drag this in temporarily for now and just promote it to a local variable. We're going to call this L items map. Just save us having to redo it, and we can go ahead and delete that. We're going to drag off of here. We're going to get a select. And we are going to go to our main variables. We're going to duplicate this. We're going to call this items to add. We're going to duplicate it again. And we're going to call this storage items. Okay. Wildcard we're going to add to there. Excuse me. If it's false, we're going to put the items to add. If it's true, we're going to put the storage items. Basically, when we load in the game, we're going to set that, and we're going to use that to restock the shelves when we load in the game. Yay. So we're going to get our items map. So drag that in. I'm going to say get last index. And we're going to promote that to a local variable. We're going to call it L last index. I'm going to join him up. These will all make sense as we go along, so please don't get too worried about it at the moment. We're going to drag in our items map again. And we're going to say get key value by index. And the index is going to be our current index. We're going to promote this to a local variable. We're going to call it L item key. Like so. And we're going to promote this to another local variable. And we're going to call this L item quantity. So we have all our variables set up from the get-go now. Okay. Now we can start. Oh, we have one more. After that, we can start doing the work. We can drag in our items mesh or our base mesh. I'm going to get socket names. Get all socket names. Make sure you get that. You should have an array. Promote that to a local variable. Just call that L socket. A lot of these are just to save a lot of strings and also to make things a little bit more stable. Okay. First, we'd have to sort of add this in the middle of the code and make things a little bit clunky. So from here, we are going to, first of all, we're going to check is this quantity more than one. So we're going to get our L item quantity. We're going to say, is this greater than 0? Be a bunch. Okay, we'll we'll handle the false first. So if it's false, we're going to get our current item index. We're going to increment it by 1, so plus plus increment goes on the false. Okay, put that away. Give ourselves a bit of space because I think, well, we need to drop it down a little bit because we're going to be working stuff above it. So we've got that. We're going to check if this is less than and equals to the last index. So in other words, it's not bigger than the last index. And the last index. Okay. Again, we're going to do a branch. If it's false, we're going to add a return node. We're going to add an output, and we're going to just call it completed. And it's an integer, sorry, it's a boolean, and we're going to say yes, we completed it. Okay. In other words, we've come to the end of the amount of items in the list. If it's true, we're going to get our current items index, and we're going to set that to this. Okay, to the increment. So make sure you say it to the increment, like so. So we're moving up an item, and then we're going to recursively run our same ourselves again. So drag in your stock item. The index is now going to be this index, and this will come from save game, which is the initial one at the beginning. Okay, you can recursively run yourself as long as it doesn't put you in a loop. So there's a way out of it, like we have here and in other places. As long as there's a way out of it, you will not get an infinite loop. If there's no way out of it, you could get an infinite loop and it will just crash. So that's handled the false on if the item is not greater than 0. Okay, which means the quantity is not greater than 0, means we've been through the list. It's got 5 items. We've got up to item number 5, and it's now 0 because we're going to be decreasing that as we go along. So, yeah. So what we're going to do next is we are going to, quite complex, so I'm having to be a little bit careful. We're going to drag from our local quantity here, we're going to -1, because we are going to be dealing with an index that starts at 0, so we don't want exit. Here we're going to do a for loop, not a for each loop, a for loop. Okay, make sure you got the right one. This now becomes the last index. Okay, for that for loop. Now comes the heavy work. Okay. We do have another local variable to add. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our storage data. I think of a good place to put it down here. Storage data. We're going to find the L item key. We're going to break our storage item. We're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm going to call it L socket data. Make sure that that comes off the loop body. And while we're back on the loop, I just want to make sure, so from the completed of the loop, we go into here also, okay? Because we've completed that one, so we're going to go ahead and do the same here again. Okay. So we've done that, we've got that. And then we need to get another local variable. So we need place. We need another variable here called can contain. And this is of type E bulk item names, a map of, well, I'm just going to check of DA underscore bulk items. So we've got that variable there. We'll go back where we set that in a moment. So we drag that in. We find the key again. L item key. We promote this local variable. We can call this L item. Join that in there. So we've gone through each one and done that. Now we're going to drag in our L socket data. We're going to iterate through these, find a free space. So we're going to say for each and we're going to, do we not got that one? Promote this to a variable, local variable, L socket L socket name. We're going to get our local sockets array. We're going to find this item. This is our L socket name. We are then going to promote this to a local variable again. And go L socket index, like so. So we're gathering all the data information that we need to act upon it. Now, if we don't know, if it doesn't find something in an array, it will give you a -1. So we're going to check, say, is this greater than -1? And if we look from our value here, this tells us whether we can actually have something in there. And this, reroute nodes, reroute nodes. If these two are true, we can go ahead and do something. For the branch, we're going to get our local sockets up here. We're going to get, the copy is good enough, we don't need a reference, and the socket name. Then we're going to use our get socket transform function that we made earlier. We're going to promote this to a local variable. I'm going to call it L transform. And that goes to the true. We're going to add another local variable. We say L can add item, and that is of type Boolean. It's a single Boolean, like so, and we're going to say yes, because we've gone through that, we found it. Drag this all the way back to, do the break, right. Go this way, drag it all the way back to here, neaten it up a little bit, make it look pretty, or less spaghetti-like. So we can read it. Okay, so we've got that. So now we've got either a true or false. Okay. If it's false, we don't do anything, we just iterate through the next one. Once we're completed, we get a can add item. We do a branch, and we join it to the completed. If it's false, we don't do anything, we just leave it, because we want to move on to the next one. If it's true, we get our set position full. We use our local key, local socket name, and we check the Boolean here. Okay, make sure you do that. Then we get our local item. Here. And we say get actor class variable from our data asset. And we go spawn actor from class. The class is going to be this class here. Now, if we did it correctly in the last one, and I'm not sure whether I went through that, so let's just do that, because the active class is actually a BP base. So I just want to open that up just to make sure that you're not going to have any problems. I don't recall telling you that. We added some extra variables, okay? Storage transform, storage ref, storage socket name, and bulk pack name. Make sure all of those four are instant editable and exposed on spawn. That way you get them here, okay? So the spawn transform is going to be the transform we found here, and we're also going to put it socket transform, okay? The handling, we're going to say always spawn, ignore collisions, because we're going to turn them off. Storage reference is going to be self, okay? So this item. Socket name is going to be the local socket name, and key is going to be the bulk pack name is going to be the local item key. Okay, we've done that. I'm not sure whether we did this. Let me just check. Set item. No, we didn't. So we need to go to our blueprint interfaces, BPI game base here somewhere. There we go. And I'm just going to open the same one up here because I think we may well have added some extra ones I forgot to tell you. So in our base, we've got set. Yeah. So we're going to add another one called get. Sorry. That is on storage. And that has an input. Is on storage of a boolean. And I'm going to add another one. Get is on storage. You can put all these in our base category now. They are on the game base. Get is on storage has an output of is on storage. And another one is get storage data. Again, put it on the base. And that has two outputs. One is name and bulk items. And the next one is socket name. See why sometimes I get a little bit confused as whether we've done them before, because the inputs and the outputs are very similar. Sometimes my brain thinks I've already done it. And one more, give is empty. And that has a bool. And this is empty. Okay, so let's make sure we put that in the right category as well. And we're going to add one more function over here later on. I'm going to call this add content. And it's has an input of item in hand, and it's a BPP base. And we're going to put that in the category of content. Okay. So that should be it, but we need to make sure that we fill those in. So let's immediately go, before we forget, to our BPP base. We've already got open. Go to our interfaces, our base category, and let's handle these. So set is on storage. We've got the variable already there, which we made. Give is empty. We've got the empty there. Get is on storage. We've got our is on storage here. Get storage data. We have the socket name and we have the bulk pack name. I think that's all we did. The contents one we'll deal with later because we haven't actually done anything with that yet. So we'll deal with that later. I think we've got them all. Give us empty is done. Get storage is done. Get is on storage is done. Set is on storage is done. Yeah. Okay, so they're all done. We know we can go ahead on them. So back to our BPP storage. We're going to come up here and we're going to say set is on storage, but you want the message. So that is on storage message. Okay, just to be sure, get the message. Getting out of here, reroute. Set mesh physics. Turning off any physics. Can use the message. And then we're going to come up here and make sure this is valid. So make sure it has actually spawned. We use the one with the question mark. Like so. Then we get our L can add item. Is that a local variable? Yeah. L can add item. We set that back to false because we've got to find it again. We get there is from save. Good branch. We get those items from our variables, not our local variables. We find the local key. Item key here. Okay. We add whatever's on there by 1. Okay. And we get our storage items again. And we do an add map function. Quantity is there. Do that off the false. Okay. And the key is the item key. Okay. So we're adding it now physically to the information or the data to our data that we read elsewhere, outside. So we're now setting it outside of this function. Then we get our items to add. We basically do this again. Except for, instead of plus, we negate it, subtract it by 1, sorry. And we get our items to add again. Do an add function, add map function. Key. And this value. So what we're doing here is from our UI, when we buy stuff, it will set this items to add. So what we're doing is once we've added an item, we take it away from here so that when we read it way back here, we get this quantity from here because we've got it from here, you see. Yeah. We're setting this items map there. If this quantity now becomes 0 because we're decreasing it at the end here, then we can move on to the next item. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're slowing down the loop. If we try to do it in a normal loop, it would skip items and it wasn't working as well as we expected it to. So I'm just going to check my time. Okay, we've gone nearly an hour on this one. I'm going to stop right there because that's all the functions done inside here. In the next video, we will be putting it together, possibly doing the UI and starting to get everything working as it should. There are some stuff we have to put in different blueprints, and we'll go ahead and we'll also do that. Thank you for watching. As always, don't forget to hit that like button if you like what I'm doing. If you don't like it, hit the don't like button, but just let me know why, but keep it civil. If you really like what I do, consider buying me a coffee or support me on Patreon. Everything is appreciated. And if you've got any problems, any questions, don't forget, you're free to comment or drop me a line in my Discord. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.